Call our meeting to order tonight. Sherry, if you could do the roll call, please.
English.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Guggen.
Yeah.
McEvers.
Here.
Miller. Here. Wood.
Here.
Please rise for the invocation. We have Pastor Pace Hartfield with One Place Church with us tonight. Welcome.
Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, I thank you that we live in a country and in a state and a city that provides us great freedom. Thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy even here tonight to be able to call on your name in a public setting, in a gathering like this. I thank you for our mayor. I thank you for the city council. Father, thank you for their service to this great city. And Father, I pray that tonight you would give them joy in what they do. I pray that you would give them wisdom and discernment to make the critical decisions that are in front of them and on the agenda today. Again, I thank you for the service that they bring and for their minds and for their hearts and for their perspectives. I pray today, God, that as we gather, that everything we do would bring you great honor. Pray that everything on the agenda that needs to move forward for the best of our city would happen, and everything else would be able to be pushed aside. God, you're so faithful, and it's in times like this that we just don't take for granted what we have as a city. And so we just give you great praise and glory for it. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Dan, if you lead us in the pledge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no amendments tonight, so we'll move on to our presentation. We have the Atlas Project presentation. We have Tony Burns with Ignite and Phil Boyd with Welsh Comer Engineer with us tonight. Welcome, Tony.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with Phil Boyd to give you guys an Atlas Project update. But first off, I want to share with you a video of a world-class Atlas waterfront park being developed. Nice. See if we can pull this off. That just goes to show you what a lot of hard work and great effort to do to create a world-class park. So appreciate and want to recognize Terry Taylor for putting that video together on behalf of Welch Comer and Ignite CDA. So thanks, Phil. So our presentation tonight will provide council an overview of the Atlas project. As recalled, the project goals were to preserve the waterfront as public space and stimulate property development by solving the complex site issues. As for first steps, the city purchased a former mill site in 2018. Ignite conducted a feasibility study to assure that the area qualified for urban renewal. Ignite then developed a master plan for the project site and demonstrated that the project site could be reclaimed, redeveloped in a financially feasible fashion. Following those efforts, council created the new Atlas District, which encompasses the majority of the former mill site area and expanded the boundaries of the river and lake districts to include certain portions of the former mill site area to aid in redevelopment efforts. So for ongoing steps for public space development, on the left side of the slide, the Park and Rec Commission led the effort on park concept and development. City Council and Ignite then developed the scope and budget for the park, and construction began in 2019. To date, Ignite has spent $6 million of the $6.2 million budget for the Atlas Waterfront Park project. As for ongoing steps on the right side of the slide for urban land development, the Planning Commission approved the PUD and associated development standards. Ignite, the city, Welch, Comer, and Heartland worked on development strategies and timing of project area and land sales. Ignite is using the DDA process to seek development team proposals through an RFP process for project areas. Submitted proposals are reviewed and scored by a committee comprised of individuals from city staff, city council, Ignite board, Ignite staff, Welch, Comer, and Heartland. The committee then makes a recommendation to the board for area awards. So later in the presentation, Phil is going to share with you a status slide showing you what areas have sold, what areas are in the DDA process, and kind of what areas are teed up for the RFPs. So with that, I'll turn it over to Phil, and he can kind of lead you through the steps here.
Thanks, Tony. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So as Tony laid out here, there's really two big parts to the project. One is the public waterfront park project, and then the other side is the Upland Development. So I'm going to go through kind of sort of briefly. The mayor said you have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to go through it. The public space amenities were obviously a key point on this project from the very beginning. And so the objective was to assimilate public input and turn it into reality. That started with Councilmember Miller and Hillary Anderson in the Core Vision Group back almost 2.5 years ago. Oh. Yeah. And so you can see the number of meetings that we've gone through that involved reaching out to the public, generating input, vetting that through the Parks and Rec Commission. From the beginning, the mayor had said, you know, it needs to run through the Parks and Rec Commission because it's a park project. The development side goes through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we've gone through all of those meetings. We've continued to engage with Ignite each month. So there's lots of public presentations with those as well. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show how the early concepts that were boiled down to kind of these concepts that you see here were some of the final presentations where the public said, we hope that that's what we get, and then show you the kind of the reality of what we've achieved. Some we got pretty good, and some things were lost to budget and technical challenges. So I'm going to start with the water access and shoreline stabilization. You might remember what the shoreline looked like, and stabilizing that from minimizing erosion was a really important feature because of the topic we hear a lot about in the newspaper these days, and is the wake boat, the surf boat wakes that create quite a bit of erosion. So that was our design criteria. So this was the vision, that we wanted to use a combination of rock stabilization and then places where the public could access the water. One of the questions I get on occasion is, why can't we access the entire shoreline? Because we didn't have enough money, because you couldn't make that much concrete shoreline stabilization. And so we ended up using the rock stabilization. I'll show you. This is the process that was used. These boulders look different than what you commonly see with a lot of riprap, but that's because of the design wave. And I could talk for an hour just on the process that went through that, but I won't. Here's some other pictures that shows the first lift of rock. It's backed by free draining material. So the water splashes up over it and gets through, and there's kind of the finished product. This is a Bill Greenwood touch right here. If I get the name wrong, Bill, I apologize. I think that's Floribunda. When we were out there one day and we were modifying some things, and Bill said, that's what we need to put in there. And if you've been down there, it really looks neat. The idea is those will grow up and they'll create a natural barrier from people wanting to kind of go over the edge and jump off of that into the water. This shows a route, an ADA route that heads down to a landing that is set up for a future day use dock down there. If the council decides to make that happen someday, that's all set up for that to happen. And you see the two trails, this trail comes through here and it starts to split into a gravel path and a wheeled path. You'll see some more pictures of that. This is an overview that shows one of the water accesses down here, and you can see there's big steps into the water, and then there's smaller steps into the water. This is a big stormwater swell in here. You see, this picture really depicts the weed challenge that many of you may have seen if you've been down at the park. Why are there so many weeds in the park? Up here at Mount Hink, we used a bunch of soil off of that, processed that soil. It ended up saving $100,000, but it was loaded with weed seed. And so as that weed sprouted, we ended up having to have the contractor kill everything, rehydroseed, and now he's still battling this weed infestation that you see here. He will eventually get on top of it. Bill Greenwood has made sure of that. So we'll get through that. You can see the parking lot here, and you can see the first starts of housing over here. It's called Area 6, Active West, who you guys I think are familiar with, purchased that, and they're building townhome duplexes over there. And Mr. Mayor, I'm glad to take questions as we go if council likes. This is another picture of the water access here, folks down here enjoying it. You can see the shoreline stabilization here. And this is that ramp that's covered with gravel rock here that Tree had in the presentation that you saw earlier. This is a picture of another access further west. This is where folks used to camp. When we were under construction, you'd go down there and you would find them camping there overnight, and we'd have to run them off. And you can see housing starting to be constructed in here. The area was purchased by Bluegrass Development, and Atlas Building Group is building those homes. This is a picture looking back at that from the water here, and you can see the access down into there, stairs down into it, and areas to lounge. People are starting to discover it. It's really interesting to see the population increase down there. This is the last water access further west. These are all water edge appropriate saplings that will eventually start growing in there. And so those were part of our permitting process. You might remember the permitting on this was quite challenging, and so there was a lot of give and take with the regulatory agencies to achieve some of these trade-offs, water accesses with the appropriate habitat on the shoreline here. This is another water access idea. We had seen these trails, and early on we thought, wow, this would be really cool. We'll put stone steps in there, and it will really look natural, and that would be a great way to do it. That's one of those details that when you start working on the design of stone steps, being able to achieve the appropriate step height that will pass a building permit, getting it to be stabilized for 50 years so it won't wash away, and this is what you end up with is a concrete step. So there's trade-offs on those things, but they're still really cool. You can just barely see there's a couple sitting down here, and I was taking pictures, and this lady yells up to Bill and I and says, "Are you involved with this?" And Bill, "Yeah, we are involved with this." And she says, "This is the greatest park I've been to, and I've been all over the world." And so it was really nice to hear. And this is a really neat one. When it's not smoky, you can see all the way up to downtown there, looking east up the river. So the restored beach, and some of you might remember this, this is what it used to look like down there. And we had in the back of our mind that was not a native configuration, because when you got down in there, you could tell that earth had been moved around. When we looked at some of the really old mill photos, you could see that there was a mill pond in there. So when we were doing our geotechnical explorations, I got the geotechs to go down in here, and we were digging cross sections through there to try to determine what was historically native. And we determined that used to look just like the NIC beach. And so we decided, let's try to restore that beach to make it look like what it originally was. Again, a bit of a permitting challenge, but we accomplished that. So this is what it used to look like, and this is what it looks like now. And so that was, we consider that a pretty big win, because obviously there's a lot of people space in there. The dog park here is on the east end. And this is another kind of a Bill Greenwood idea that happened in here with one of several of the Ignite board members, that originally this was restored slightly differently. As we were doing a walkthrough with them, they wanted to do something more to it. And so Bill and I started waving our arms out there and created this beach area in here with the grass. I'll get to some of this here in a little bit. Let me use this. I'll get to this in a second. This is the accessible ramp, and this is the accessible kayak launch here. Here's again a couple of shots of the beach that is graded to a slope that didn't exist previously. There was a big mound of dirt and then a giant hole here that was a mill pond. And here's the bike path, the shared use path. So the accessible beach, another theme that has run through the parks, it ran through McEwen Park, was accessibility throughout the entire park. A big thing, because none of us know if we might need those types of facilities in our lifetime. And so it was big in McEwen Park. It was important to Bill and I and the whole design team to make it happen here. And the one thing that didn't exist in Coeur d'Alene yet was an accessible route to the water, where you could actually submerge your wheelchair if you needed to, or your walker. And so this was the idea that we had and presented, and we got positive feedback for it. And then we moved into design. And as I started working on the design, there is no design standards that I could find for designing an accessible route into the water. So similar on the kayak thing, you can buy products off the shelf that are accessible. And so that was a little easier. So what we ended up doing is designing this facility down here to essentially pool standards. So it's designed like you would design access to an indoor pool. You can see right up here is where the parking is. And so if you need an accessible route, you can come down here. This picnic area is fully accessible here. It'll have an accessible picnic table on it. You can come down here, go to the dock this way, or come down here and get yourself into the water. And this is a view looking down at. You can wheel down here. If you want to use a transfer wall, you can use a transfer wall, park your wheelchair there, and swing over. Or if you want to submerge yourself all the way in, you can, and stop down there, and off you go into the water. Bill and I had spent a lot of time with folks from the Disability Action Commission working on the design of this. Few little details. You can see there's sediment that washes over here. We had planned for a little bit of it, but not that much. And so there'll be some remedial work that happens there to prevent sediment from moving down through there. And then this is another challenge that occurs, is folks that are using it that may not need to use it. And so they're occupying that space. And so we have some signage that I had put in the memo to the council that will hopefully educate folks and maybe reserve that for people that need it. This is a picture of the kayak launch. This is the route that you could drop your kayak in, drops into this slot here, and there's another one over there, and a route right down to the dock here. Again, another one, folks use it as a swimming dock and a sunbathing dock, and so there'll be some signage that goes up there to hopefully educate folks what it's for. The water access dog park, this was alternately a really great idea and a controversial idea. Some folks loved it, some folks hated it. It's too big. It's why would you put it here on such great real estate? We should have it for people. No, we need one for our dogs. Ultimately, the conclusion was make it a dog park, and pay particular attention to this inspirational photo that we used at one time. And there the dog is, and right there in the picture you can see the chew that the lady threw out there. And these two pictures are from a citizen that sent them to Hillary with some really nice compliments, and we just put them and plopped them in here. But you can see the park gets packed, and people are in the water with their dogs, and it's quite a popular place. And then the playground, we've found a spot for it right there next to the picnic shelter. These were some of the inspirational photos, and you can see it down in here. Again, kind of maintained some of the themes, but some of the fancier stuff was pulled back because of budget constraints. The parking lot is extremely large because during one of the presentations, a particular council person, McEvers, commented to me about parking and wanted to make sure. And so we actually ended up adding about 30 or 4 more spaces along this edge here. And it does get filled with cars in there. This route goes up onto the Prairie Trail, and then you can see the trail that heads back down that direction over to the east and the beach. So now I'll talk a little bit about the Upland Development part of it. Remember, and Tony kind of mentioned this, this was a challenging development proposal because here was this piece of property, and the council, I'm sure, remembers, spent $7.85 million purchasing it and said, take the waterfront out. So now you've got this expensive piece of property, and you take the most valuable piece out of the equation and have to figure out how to generate enough revenue to pay for the infrastructure, sell the property, and hopefully reimburse the city, was Ignite's directive to us. How do you achieve that? And it's with density. And to get this kind of density, we had to make smaller lots and really wedge things in there. There's also some unique design features to achieve that density. One of them is most of the stormwater comes off of the upland area and ends up down in the park area here. So you may walk through it and look at it and say, oh, this is kind of green space and that's kind of nice. It's actually a stormwater treatment system, which allowed us to achieve higher density up here because we could use what normally would be street side swales as portions of a sellable lot. So that was one of the features that we used to accomplish that. This is an early photo because you see that the triangle piece is not part of the design at this point. So Tony mentioned the land disposition process. We have development standards. We put those into the PUD so they have some teeth to them. And then we move through and use an RFP process with land sales. And that process Tony mentioned earlier. The results of that are when we did the first RFP in July, the areas here shown in green, including this one over here that's currently shown in blue, made it through the process. Developers were selected. These 3 that are in green actually got through fruition. Area 13 never got through to what's called the conclusion of the DDA, the Disposition and Development Agreement, because Ignite couldn't quite come to terms with the developer on that piece. So it'll eventually get RFP'd. We got through those. The next RFP put out, sorry, I missed Area 6 over here, which was part of.
Area 6.
Yeah, yep, got it. I normally miss Area 6 because it's too far to the right. So we've got all 5 of those that are through the DDA process. As I mentioned earlier, these 3 are under construction. Construction on Area 10 is supposed to start in September of this year, and Area 12 will begin next year.
Phil, if I could, the green that you've pointed out, though, those are all single-family homes. I think that's important to note. And then the other areas you can talk about what made sense, but for the development standards, we were very adamant that those parcels would be single-family homes.
Yes, and that's part of the evaluation process that Councilmember Wood's talking about is there's flexibility in which goes into these different areas. And so down here in 1 and 2, they could have been townhomes or they could have been single-family homes. A proposal may come in and it may have a higher purchase price as single-family homes, which weighs a lot. Multifamily homes, or or townhomes, sorry. There's single-family homes here or townhomes that could be here. And there was a little bit of a debate of what was the appropriate use there. Ultimately, here it was decided it should be single-family homes. Moving forward, because there's a desire to have a diversity of product type, so you just don't have single-family homes up at a $1.6 million price point, which we see these advertised for currently in this area here, that you want a little bit of a diversity in there. Currently, these are slated to be townhomes. That's what the RFP is requesting is please present as townhomes. A proposer can always come in and say, no, I want to do single-family homes, but it may not be scored as high by the selection committee and the recommendation that's ultimately made to the board. Councilmember Wood, is that the point you were getting at, is trying to achieve the, yeah, so we're trying to achieve a diversity there, because remember the value proposition for Ignite in the city is a little different than a developer. A developer may say, all I care about is the bottom line. Part of the calculus for Ignite is making sure we create a great neighborhood that has maybe a little broader demographic in it, economically, so it's not just a single kind of homogeneous demographic.
I have a quick question on 13 down below. Is that multifamily? Is that what it's saying? And that was commercial, if I remember correctly.
It is, it has the ability to do both.
Okay,
And
like
so-
a mixed use.
Yep, yes, and so that is probably, when we went through the second PUD amendment, we went back to the Planning Commission and asked for a few more deviations, and one of the trade-offs in securing that deviation was tying down the commercial part to this. And you can see that red represents commercial. So there's a minimum of 5,000 square feet of commercial here that whoever comes in there, what they propose needs to have a commercial element to it. And it's incentivized to have restaurant commercial in it. And it's incentivized through parking. And I could get into the technical details of it, but when you start digging into it, the parking is incentivize you to put in a restaurant in there. Restaurants are, of course, a challenge. And so that's why the multifamily component exists with it. And you get into mixed use, and there's a whole bunch of discussion we could have there. Let's see here. So we're working through RFP 3 right now. That's out for response. The responses are coming in the first part of August here. And we're moving forward with starting the infrastructure probably September, October through here, and then moving through this phase, and then moving into RFP 4 in the first quarter of 2022. There's quite an earthwork project over here, and a big earthwork project consumes lots of capital. So the capital that comes off of these sales down here will help support the big earthwork project that occurs over here. And just a couple pictures. This is zoomed in a little bit more. You can see our big earthwork project back there, Mount Hink that we refer to it as. And this is Area 6, which is Active West, and they're moving along pretty rapidly. And then this is over at areas 1 and 2 where Atlas Building Group is currently building homes. A lot of this is paved out now. We started, Laurier started paving on yesterday. So a lot of this is paved out, and we'll continue to move through kind of finishing up this landscaping and whatnot. So Mayor, I don't know if I did it in 10 minutes, but I tried to.
Yeah.
I was moving pretty quickly.
Council questions for Phil? Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Phil, I'd just like you to remind the audience the total acreage, and then the investment by the city to purchase it and the investment by Ignite, and maybe help people understand why there is some development.
So the original purchase was somewhere in the, I should know this off the top of my head.
Troy can help.
Yeah, I think it was in the 45-acre size. We did some vacations, the council might remember, we did some vacations up on Celtice Way, because remember Celtice Way was a highway, and the right-of-way was very wide. And so there was some no man's land in there, and so we vacated that. There was some city property over here that got assimilated into it that was old railroad right-of-way here, and then the city's strip of ownership through the parcel. So right now, it's right around 60 acres. The park, as Tony said, was $6.2 million. Ignite funded that. There's going to be the estimated property values that were currently estimated off this, when it's built out, right around $250 million worth of real estate will be here generating tax base. By the time we do all the infrastructure, sell the property, somewhere around $10 or $11 million, and the reason I'm hedging $12 million is you guys know what's happening with commodities now, would be generated off of just the residual land value, just the land sales. And so that's after you've paid for the infrastructure, you haven't paid for the land yet. So the net from Ignite is somewhere in that area. And then I think that's where the question getting to where the reimbursement back to the city would be considered to come out of that net
Right,
value.
and that was the driver behind having to sell some of this, well, develop this,
Yes.
was to pay for the waterfront for the public to enjoy. It would have been great to preserve 45 to 60 acres, but just financially wasn't feasible.
Absolutely, and plus having a great neighborhood is an important thing, is part of the community. It's not just having everything green space.
Kiki?
Phil, along the same line of questioning, has the time frame for this being built out changed dramatically with the COVID flipping the switch on everything?
It did a little bit. It delayed some of the park project. It hasn't appreciably delayed phase one. Not terribly. If anything that has happened is our timeframe has been shortened a little bit. Originally, when we had projected this, we projected the absorption out to about 2026, 2027. Now you can see that RFP 6 is going to occur in 2023. And honestly, I'll tell you that is from the pressure from the Ignite board, because they want to make sure that we're trying to catch the real estate market now. And so we're trying to move as quickly as possible with entitling the property and getting the land development done and put out RFPs in a responsible way that still, allow thoughtful responses to them. So it's shorter. The things we do hear from the contractor is the availability of fittings, pipe fittings, and so we anticipate hearing that on phase two a little bit, but I don't know that it will impact the land sales.
Any other questions for Phil? Just one correction, Phil, is that, so in 15 or 20 minutes, you and Tony captured what's been done there, but I believe you started in February of 2018, so that would be over 3.5 years.
That's
that this
right, 3.5
process
years, yeah.
has been going. So there's been hundreds and hundreds of hours of work on a lot of people's behalf to get to this point, and so it's going to be exciting in 4 to 5 years when it's all built out.
Yeah, and it will really look neat. And along those lines, back, I guess, to the partnership, and you hear this from, I think, Tony a lot. At my level in the hierarchy, I can tell you, working with the city staff, Hillary's group, Bill Greenwood, Ted's folks, Terry Pickle, the guys at Wastewater, Larry Parsons, there, a lot of times this is moving very quickly, and sometimes things change because it's being designed in phases, and they've all been super good to work with and very responsive to help move the thing along, because back to that pressure thing that we get from Ignite to, let's get this going and get these lots sold. That's a big part of it. So it's been really good to work with the city folks.
Well, it's beautiful. If any of the public hasn't been down there yet, it's a great, great park. I think it hasn't totally been discovered, so it's kind of a locals park.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fun and nice. And you and Bill and Ignite, everyone's done a fabulous job in the 3.5 years.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Phil.
You bet.
And Tony, appreciate it. So we will move on to public comment. Any member of the audience wishing to give public comment. We do have a public hearing that's at the end of our agenda tonight, that if anyone wishes to speak on that item, you can save it till we come up with that item. This is just general public comment that you wish to address the council would have 3 minutes to do so. Anyone in the audience wish to give public comments tonight? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Eric Swanbeck. I live at 1808 North Pansy Street in Coeur d'Alene. I first want to say thanks for being able to let me make some comments tonight. 6 years ago, I bought a home in a nice, quiet neighborhood. In that time, I've seen my neighborhood deteriorate into one where 50% of the homes in my neighborhood are Airbnbs. And when I say deteriorate, I do mean deteriorate. Frequently, we are subject to loud noise and music, late night partying, dogs barking continuously, dogs defecating on my property, people drinking and being loud in the afternoon, renters urinating out in the open. Also, we have floodlights that have been installed that are on all night long, makes it seem like it's a Walmart parking lot. We have cameras that monitor our every move. We have increased street parking and traffic, renters coming and going at all hours. We have strangers in our neighborhood, people we don't even know. A couple of years ago, I looked out my window and saw the renters that were there flashing rifles and handguns. And I was really nervous to even go out of my house at that point. We have owners who think we should tolerate this bad behavior because they don't really care what goes on in our neighborhood. All they care about is what they're making off the rental. We have owners who don't keep up their properties. We have owners who throw garbage in the street. Today I came home from somewhere, got out of my car. One of the new renters or owners for the property across the street from me threw a half-eaten apple out in the street. And I had to confront them about that. My neighborhood now seems more like a business district than just a nice, quiet neighborhood. And what you don't see the stress of dealing with all this. The stress of wondering, is it going to be a quiet weekend? It's not even a quiet weekend anymore. The rental, the one that's right next to me, since COVID hit, has been full almost every single day for the last year. You wonder if you go off to work, when you come home in the evening, if it's going to be nice, if you're going to be able to relax and enjoy the place that you live. You have the stress of calling police and code enforcement. You have the stress of confronting renters. The stress of wondering all the time, how is it affecting my property value? This is not something anybody who lives in Coeur d'Alene should have to experience. In the past 6 years, I've written the rental companies many times. I've spoken and written to the owners. I've called animal control many times. I've called code enforcement more times than he or I can count. I've called the police many times. And I'm always discouraged from filing an official complaint. The last time I called them, which was about 3 weeks ago, there were 12 kids staying in it. The officer said to me, well, if I come out there, I'm going to have to confront them. And I said, but isn't that your job? He said, yes. And I said, well, you don't want me to confront them because then you're definitely coming out here. I filed a police report a couple of years ago about them throwing dog feces in the street when they clean up after the renters leave. Nobody followed up on it. I've written the county commissioners. I most recently wrote you guys as well. After all this, 2 weeks ago, I find out that not one Airbnb in my neighborhood even had a permit. So in looking at the city code, as I've been going through, there are two statements I'd like to share with you. In the city code, it says, the city believes that the need to protect the integrity and essential residential character of its residential areas is of paramount concern. The second, the objective of home occupation regulations is to allow a limited commercial service activity in areas of residential land use only to the extent that neighbors will not be negatively impacted by such things as outward appearance, noise, smell, glare, traffic, or activity level occurring on the site. I have lost the character and integrity of the neighborhood where I live, and many of my neighbors feel the same way. So I put it to you, is this city code just a bunch of words, or do you mean it? Because it feels like the city cares more about these short-term renters than they do the people who live here. Thank you for
And thank
hearing
you
me.
for
If
bringing
you have
that
any
to
questions, I'd be glad
attention.
to answer.
Ever since we received your letter, which was a few weeks ago, that's when we kind of dove into it. And Renata's not here tonight, and she is oversees that department, but Troy can comment on that. We spent, was it Hillary, 3 years ago, a lot of time on short-term rental rules and regulations. We are prohibited by the state from banning vacation rentals, right? We have to have them, right? There's a state law that says you have to allow vacation rentals, short-term rentals in your community. So our hands are tied a little bit by that. But we do have rules and regulations that govern short-term rentals. A lot of times, and most of the time, that has to be complaint-driven. And in your neighborhood, specific neighborhood, none of those people were registered. When you filed your complaint, then we have been in contact with every one of those. And to be licensed, they have to file a license permit, and there are a number of things that they have to go by. Or, Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, but they risk losing the ability to have that. And so you might expound a little bit more on what we've done since we've gotten this gentleman's letter to address those issues.
Yeah, we've taken the complaints and done the research, and Renata has been in touch with you as we look into that. I believe some of those quotes were that some of these are long-term rentals as well, and so we work with code enforcement in order to make sure that they're maintaining their properties and taking care of the weeds and things like that. But we have, the way in which we want safe residency taking place in those homes. So again, it's complaint-driven, and we really do need to have those forwarded to the PD so that we can follow up on it, especially the late-night activities and those things that are not allowed in our residential areas.
So we do take your letter very seriously. We will make some progress on protecting your neighborhood, and so please be in contact with us and let us know what we can do legally.
I'm not
to
saying
help
you
the
don't take it
situation.
seriously. I'm just saying I don't think the regulations go far enough.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time on it. This council worked a lot on it, and maybe we need to revisit it again and have more rules and regulations.
I would be glad to help
Dan, did you?
if it would.
Yeah. well,
Dan,
you
go
know,
ahead.
Which one?
We'll go Dan.
Oh,
right
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, thank you, Eric, and I agree. I thought our strategy for vacation rentals was wrong. The city said, oh, let's take a light touch. I knew it wouldn't work. My neighborhood's the same thing. We have way too many vacation rentals, and it does destroy the character of the neighborhood. It's a commercial activity in a residential zone. The state restricts us, but they didn't cut off our heads. We can still severely regulate them, which I would be in favor of having a limited number within the city and charge them through the gums for it. Thousands of dollars a year to run a vacation rental, because the priority here is people like you who live here. You bought into a neighborhood for a character neighborhood, and the city needs to protect you, and we have dropped the ball. I'm sorry.
So it was shared with me by one of the individuals I spoke with this week that I asked if every house on my street could be an Airbnb, and I was told yes. But then it's not even a residential, I'm in an R, is it R12? So it's not even R12 anymore. It's a commercial, because they're all businesses. And so then what do you do?
Dan?
Well, I would just follow up in kind of more of the same sentiment that actually born and raised here and have seen the different changes, and I'm both amazed and dismayed by the actions of our legislature on a number of these things that are so, in my mind, kind of anti-local control. I can't for the life of me figure out why, when they chose to come up with these laws and regulations and say, we are going to put the interest of folks with a commercial enterprise and with a different motive than the people who live there and maintain and go out and weed the flower bed and all that. We're going to put a higher priority on the dollar value of those folks than we are for our folks who live here and invest here and work in, volunteer activities and all that. So I don't know why that is. I appreciate that you come here, but I think people need to know that a lot of the energy that you have and frustration needs to be, next time they have a legislative town hall, that those folks need to be hearing the exact same things there. Same thing, which is maybe not exactly related, but I mean, like with the local property tax, and that for whatever reason, it is getting skewed so that it is way more beneficial to the commercial interest for property tax paying than for the homeowners. And so, anyway, I feel your pain. I don't know what the answer is. I'm with the other Dan that anything that we can do within the limits that we have, we need to take a hard look at, and then we need to go in there and say, okay, we need some different limits because this is not working for us. So.
And there's two sides to that. There's the side of some neighborhood issues that you brought to our attention, and the other side of it too is affordable housing, because you're taking all of these houses out of a pool that potentially could be a family renting it because they're used as vacation rentals. Now, but we need to revisit it. We probably need to tighten up the rules. Affordable housing is the number one issue that we have right now in Coeur d'Alene, and I hear stories every week of families whose homes have been sold out from underneath them. They're renters, the owners sell it, and they can't find any place to go. And so that vacation rental is a part of that problem too.
So if I could just share one more thing before I sit down. I agree with you. 6 years ago when I bought my home, I know you're all going to laugh, I bought it for $175.
Awesome.
It was kind of a shell. But I have redone that whole thing from front to back and top to bottom. The house across the street from me just sold for $500,000. It's crazy that in my neighborhood. And I was joking about that a couple of years ago, and now here it is, it's a reality.
Kiki.
I just wanted to apologize too for I don't think the city has done anything wrong. When we started this short-term rental program, none of us were big into big government and overreach, and we did get a lot of organizations involved, but we also knew that this was something that was going to be reviewed, and it would be complaint-driven, and it would be reviewed. And in my experience, at least the last year, there's been another group of people, Sanders Beach area, I think, that had come forward, and staff has been looking at different things under the short-term rental code to bring forward. At budget workshops, I brought up the fact that we have to do this sooner than later. We have to do it now, this month, before this budget, because of all of these reasons that I think council and the mayor are very well aware of. It's not just about money for the city, it's about protecting these neighborhoods, it's about protecting inventory, and it's about putting teeth in this code that can allow us to have more control over what happens in our community. So I appreciate you being involved, having the courage to file the complaint that they need, and know that I, for one, have been on this for a long time, knowing that there's going to have to be tweaks to this code, and staff is well aware of that, including limiting outside investments, including the number per unit, the number per area, and all of these things have been discussed. And I've been working with the local housing regional partnership on this, and it's very much at the top of everyone's mind.
I appreciate that. And I will, as Woody knows, I am considering selling my home, but mostly because I can't continue to live like this. The stress on me is just way too much. Like right now in the back of my head, there's new people coming in tonight. What are they going to be like? Am I going to have a good week? Is it going to be a good weekend? And I can't continue to live like that. I don't want to, because this was 16 years ago when I moved here. This was the place I thought I found that I would make my home forever. And unfortunately, it may not be that way.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to give public comments tonight? Okay, we will move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement? Of
course I do.
Woody, you got something? You're waving your finger down there. Are you just waving your finger?
Oh, I have something. So there's a fellow sitting back in the television booth from city of Kalispell, and his name is Eric Brewer. We want to welcome him. He is here with Talking TV with our guy Jeff Crow on they're upgrading their system, and it's fun to talk to people that are in this business doing television for government.
Are they going to go to color?
What's that?
It's a joke.
No, sorry. Anyway, we want to welcome Eric, and hopefully he can learn some stuff and pass some stuff to us, even though I know Jeff knows everything. The other one, Candlelight Church, just did incredible. Last Tuesday they came to Lake City Center and donated $16,500 to help fix some air conditioning issues we were having. I'm just sort of blown away that can just happen. And from what the story is, they raised it in one Sunday through 3 services. People just stepped up. Sorry, I'm kind of out of that world, but it's kind of nice. And old Van Oy just said, we like to help the community. And I just went, well, dude, you just did a big one. It's hard for me to understand how that happens, but I feel real blessed, and Lake City Center is feeling pretty uppity right now.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Yes, thank you.
Kiki, just have an announcement?
Just real quick on the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership, the work group met last week, and on the 26th is going to be releasing what was the community's priority one item, which was a collaboration on how to preserve open space on the prairie. That document's being looked at now by all of the working group partners, and it should be out after the 26th. That'll include a history, all the ongoing efforts and paths forward for some of the things that have been talked about for the last 3 months. The FAQs on the website, kmpo.net, featured programs and working groups has been updated. There's been more advisory group members added to that roster and additional questions for the public answered. The next meeting, the entire group will be discussing the regional housing assessment update that's being done by the EDC and Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance. So the update on the progress of that, and hopefully it's released in September. And the new priority that the entire group is working on is local worker housing. That'll start with what options are currently available by statute in all of these regions that can assist us with preserving inventory, creating inventory for people who need to live and work here, and what can be added in the way of regional codes and or housing types, as well as we'll be given feedback by the advisory group members on which one of these items to tackle and in which order. So that advisory group's about 40 different organizations now, and they're all took a poll at our last meeting and are encouraged and wanting to be more engaged on moving forward this important issue. So I'll continue to give you announcements about projects, ideas, and priorities that come out of that.
All right, thank you. Christy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of North Idaho College, I'm a trustee at North Idaho College. I just wanted to recognize the city, thank the city. A couple of years ago, we began working with the mayor on upgrade to Memorial Field and contributed to some of that. And our girls have used the facilities, and thank you, Bill Greenwood, for making it so nice there. And the most important thing is you drive down the boulevard, you're going to see that beautiful cardinal on the side of the building. It's really nice. Yes, that was part of the deal. Can't ever be taken down. And so, anyway, great partnership with the city, win-win for the whole community. So thank you, Mayor Whitmire.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to the consent calendar. What do you got down there, Woody, for the consent calendar?
I got it, Mayor. I move to approve consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 21043.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Sherry.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
Guggen,
Of course.
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Motion carried. We will move on to other business. This is Resolution 21-044, approval of amendment number 4 to the Coeur d'Alene garbage agreement for single-stream recycling for a 3-year extension. Troy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I bring you good news on the business of recycling. It is my interpretation that the recycling market has finally steadied. We've come before you twice before, making sure that we had an exit strategy if the cost of this recycling exceeded $20,000 a month. We pushed up against that over a year ago. It is now coming down nicely. For the last 7 months, it has been averaging $10,062 per month. The trend is good. Prior to that, we were averaging over $15,000 per month to process the recyclables. One question would be, how many tons are we doing? We continue to average about 28 tons of recyclables each and every month. So that has stayed very consistent. But this commodity market has finally figured itself out, and we're past COVID. So that is really good news. So my proposal to you tonight, which is good news for the city, we still have the sideboards on this in case recycling prices went way up. We can get in front of our contract hauler and come back to you. But right now, I would propose to you, we extend it for 3 years. We still have the same sideboards, and I don't have to talk to you on an annual basis about this one topic.
Questions? Dan?
Is there anything new on the glass front for recycling?
I have nothing new on the glass, but we are reusing the glass the same fashion that we have been for the last number of years. We have reached out to a number of entities. I thank Mayor Widmeyer because he's so well-known that when I call other entities, they already know that Mayor Widmeyer has checked in. So the best use of glass would be to crush it up and use it as a sandblasting material, but the cost to truck the glass makes it totally expensive because it's so far away. It would be down in the Salt Lake area or the Seattle area. So I don't have any great updates other than what we've been doing.
Any other questions for Troy? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 21044, approval of amendment number 4 to the Coeur d'Alene garbage agreement for single-stream recycling for a 12,
That should be a
12
three.
36 months extension.
Yep, 36
Second.
month extension. So Sherry, did you catch that adjustment there in the motion? It should be for a 36-month extension. Dan?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Troy and Mr. Damiano for working really hard on this. I think this is probably the longest stretch that we've not had to increase our garbage collection fees for a while in the city, and I appreciate that, and I think the ratepayers do. Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome.
All right, anything else? Roll call, please, Sherry.
Miller.
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
Guggen.
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. Our next piece of business is a public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. This is A-2-21, a proposed 3.194 acre annexation from County Ag Suburban to City R3, located at 2248 East Stanley Hill Road. Applicant Eugene and Nancy Hogg, Living Trust. And then, as part of the procedures here, I need to ask council if they have any conflict of interest in this matter. Any conflicts? Okay, we will move ahead with the presentation. And Mike Beharry.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a public hearing from item A-2-21, application by Eugene and Nancy Haig Living Trust, represented by Dobler Engineering. They're requesting an annexation of 3.19 acres in conjunction with zoning approval from County Agricultural Suburban to R3 zoning district in the Hillside overlay. This property is located at 2248 East Stanley Hill Road. Legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on July 3rd, 2021, and all other legal notifications have been made. Here is a location map indicating where this property is located. You see it's highlighted here in red. The green indicates the existing city limits. You see that. Here's a close-up aerial photograph of the property. The applicant, if it is approved, the applicant is proposing to add 4 buildable lots on the southern part of this property with an open space track. 3 of the lots will be accessed on this side of Lily, and 1 lot will be accessed on this side of Lily. Here's a bird's eye view of the subject property looking north. And here's a bird's eye view looking east. This property is located in the city's ACI. You can see it's located right here in red. And the applicant has submitted an annexation map and a legal description of the proposed annexation area. The existing zoning is County Ag Suburban, and the proposed zoning is R3 with the Hillside overlay. There are 4 findings that must be met in order for an annexation to be approved. Finding B8 through a B11. The first one is finding B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan indicates this is in the Cherry Hill area, and the Cherry Hill area is proposed at a density from 1 to 3 units per acre. It's also in the stable established area. These areas where the character of the neighborhoods has largely been established and in general should be maintained. The street network, the number of building lots, and general land uses are not expected to change greatly within the planning period.
Mike, I have a question. Can you go back 2 slides?
Sure.
That map one? There. So everything on the right, is that still county?
That is still county.
Everything on the right is county, and the yellow is the only city?
This is in the city, this is in the city. This is in the
Okay,
city.
there's water and sewer.
There is.
Is there water to the ag side? Do you know?
The applicant, right now, they have to do it to and through, so they have to bring the sewer to and through the property, so that would, if it was going to annex in the future this area, they would have water.
Okay, but that's like a subdivision there, right?
That is true,
In the county,
in the county.
with no sewer.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This slide represents comprehensive plan objectives as it relates to this request. The full list is on page 14 and 15 of your staff report. Objective 1.10, hillside protection, protect the natural and topographical character, identity, and aesthetic quality of the hillsides. Community design, support and enhance the existing urbanized areas and discourage sprawl. And 3.05, neighborhoods, protect and preserve existing neighborhoods from incompatible land uses and developments. The next finding is finding B9, that public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. This application has been routed to the city departments for their review in regards to public utilities and public facilities. And each department has indicated that there are public facilities and public utilities available and adequate for the proposed annexation with the zoning to R3. Staff has recommended 19 conditions as part of this annexation request, and that is at the back of your staff report. The next finding is finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. The site slopes to the south, and there is approximately 120-foot drop in elevation on the subject property. The site is currently densely treed, and the subject property would be annexed into the city under the city's hillside regulations. Here's a topographical map indicating the topography on the property. As you can see, it slopes to the south, and it's pretty consistent with the surrounding properties. The next slides are site photos of this property, and this is the first one of the existing single-family dwelling located on the property. This next one is on the Lily, on the west side of the property, or on the east side of the property looking west. This is on the center of the property looking southwest. This is on the other side of on Lily, on the east side of this property looking west. And this is on the center of the property looking north. The last finding is finding B11, that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and/or existing land uses. The city engineer has reviewed this and indicated the proposed annexation itself would not adversely affect the surrounding area with regard to traffic, as no traffic is generated from an annexation alone. The Streets and Engineering Department has no objection to the annexation as request as proposed. The proposed R3 zoning district is intended as a residential area that permits single-family detached housing at a density of 3 dwelling units per acre. This district is intended for those areas of the city that are developed at this density or are preferably developed at this density because of factors such as vehicular access, topography, flood hazard, and landslide hazard. Here's a land use map indicating the land uses. It's predominantly single-family dwelling and a couple duplexes located in the area. There are 19 recommended conditions for the annexation agreement. I won't go through all of them, but...
May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
That seems extensive. Is this a lot of recommendations? Prepared?
It is the hillside, so we had to get some recommendations to cover the hillside to make sure that was adequate. But normally the fire department and the sewer and water have their typical annexation conditions that go along with this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So you'll need to review this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions for Mike? Woody?
Mike, can you show me access to that one house that's up on the, I guess that's the west end? Where's it access to?
The existing house is located right here, and it's Stanley Hill Road, and there's a driveway entrance right here to this property.
Okay. And again, I got to go back to the county side.
So this is the county side.
County side. City water?
For the county, I don't think the county has city water. So the county does not have city water. You have to be in the city to get the city water.
Well,
And sometimes, unless there's an old agreement that has happened in the past, and I'm unaware if this has city water or not.
So no city water theoretically and no sewer. So they're all on septics?
These properties
Yeah.
not associated with this annexation?
Right. No.
Right, yeah, if they're in the county, we have to do a well and septic, unless there's a prior.
So they come over, they give up their water rights to the city, correct?
Pardon me?
If we annex them, their water rights would come to the city.
If this piece is annexed, they would have to get city sewer and water, yes.
Gotcha. But on the other side, all I'm thinking is I'm looking at this and saying if we annex them, it pushes them across to the other side of the subdivision. So now, rather than just a piece, right, they theoretically now they could be annexed because of the what do you call it?
Well, this
Through and
person
through?
would have to provide city sewer and water through the property in case if this ever request to be annexation, the city and sewer and water is available for these properties. But there wouldn't be a forced annexation
No,
for
of
these.
course not. No.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
the policy we have for all properties that annex,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
to and through policy.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mike, keeping this map up, so we see that you told me, or you told everyone, that East Lily Drive, which is there on the right, is going to be the egress for 3 of the parcels.
That's correct. There's 3 parcels going to be located. We'll have access off of this way and 1 off of this way.
East Lily Drive is not in the city.
This part of East Lily Drive is.
The one that I'm talking about, where the
Is
3
not.
houses are
That's-
going to have their egress.
That's not.
So how can we have 3 houses in the city that won't have a city address?
They won't have a city.
That's not the city street.
Once we annex it in, it will have, it'll be addressed to the city, it'll be in the city's GIS system, it'll have a city address.
Of
It'll
what?
be access off a county road, like all these other roads up here, they're in the county, but they come through a city road to get to it.
But we're not talking about putting a road through this. That's what it said in the staff report. So
Right.
they're not going to put a road through. They're going to put a shared driveway.
That's right.
They have to be fronting a street in order to have a street address. They're going to be fronting a street that's not in the city, so they're not going to have a city address.
They will have a city address because they will be annexed into the city, and that's a city address. But the road is technically, this will be Lily in the county, and this will be an address in the city. So if they call 911, it'll be a city address because
They call 911, our fire department has to go out of the city, into the county, back into this.
But they have to do that to reach this property too. So they have to come out of this city, into the county, and then back into the city. So they'd have to do this in a lot of areas in the city besides this one.
Thank you.
Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, can you show me where there is a natural spring on the property?
I've walked this property with our building services director, and we located it at approximately at this, I would say this location right around here. There's a pipe that has some water coming out of it. The applicant is required to do a geotech report to show how this is going to be mitigated, and this building services director will review that.
Could there be an impact that maybe that spring wouldn't be available as it has been to other properties if this is developed into 3 lots, 4 lots?
It doesn't leave the property.
Oh, okay.
It just gets on the surface and then just we've walked the property to the bottom and there was no water on the bottom.
So it's not like a.
It's not like a running creek or anything like that.
Thank you, thank you.
Other council questions for Mike? Imagine we may have a few a little later, but thank you, Mike.
Okay.
So now we have a 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes for the applicant to make a presentation. Welcome, Gordon. Sherry, I guess we'll have to do the swearing in stuff.
Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Gordon Dobler, Dobler Engineering. Thank you for your time tonight. And I'm going to take an opportunity through my presentation to maybe clear up some of your questions. Let's see if I can get this into the full, where's the, no. Sorry.
We want to expand it like a power. Just click this one, and they should put it into like the slideshow.
Okay. So you've seen this. This is the property. You know where it's at. We'll maybe come back to this when I talk about access to the property. So we're doing three things: annexation, a PUD, and a subdivision. The reason for the PUD is because we're using a common driveway to access three of the lots that wouldn't front street property. So by code, you can do that with the PUD, and I'll get into that on what we're offering with the PUD and how that looks and lays out. So we're asking for an R3, which we believe is compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. I'd like to just point out some of the densities. Our overall density here is 1.5 dwelling units per acre. These are the densities of the abutting neighborhoods: Ponderosa Terrace, Ponderosa Park, 2.9, 3.29, 2.42. Two of these are in the county adjacent to it. One of them is in the city, Stanley Terrace. But my point here is the compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. We are actually less dense. Our lots are bigger than the surrounding lots. You've heard R3 allows single family, so we would be proposing single family on the subdivision. Here's the proposed plat. So we have an existing house, which you've seen. Staff covered it. And chase a quick rabbit. The access is actually a looped driveway. Councilman McGivers asked about that. It loops through here and comes back through the trees where you couldn't see it. So it's actually a looped driveway onto Stanley Hill. They would be maintaining that access. This house is on septic right now, and it would be connected to sewer, as would the others. I'm going to speak to utilities a little bit, and hopefully set the record right here. So these four lots, well, again, there's an open space tract here that's required by the PUD, and then we have the four new lots down here. We would have a common driveway that comes in off the east side to serve these three lots. The main reason for that is that it has the lowest impact for grading to do that. We're coming in pretty much at level with the street and just extending it for maybe 100 feet to serve these two lots and that third one. To serve them from down here would be required, really the impact from grading would be, in my opinion, not acceptable. This is pretty low impact. As far as access to the site, I think Councilman Gookin asked about fire access. You can come back to see this right here. Here's the property. You'd have one house that would come right through here. These houses up in here are being accessed by this. So there are a couple of ways to get to this east side. But yes, you'd have to come around, or more than likely you'd be coming from French Gulch and come up this way under Pennsylvania from the downtown station would be my guess. So it's not circuitous. They would be coming from the south up this road and to access the east side. There is water in Lilly East, and it is city water. It's the, some of you might be familiar with, in the past, the city has bought abutting water systems, Budford water system off of Blackwell Island, and there's a few more. We bought one up in Hoffman Estates, but this is the same deal. So, in fact, we had talked with the water department about a requirement to connect these two mains, and they've made that connection already and saw no need to bring the water through. So the water is served to both sides, and the water department is not requiring a through connection. We'd be happy to do it, but they're not requiring it. So they've got redundancy, and their system requirements have been fulfilled. So these houses are all on city water. And just as a side note, yes, they would be on septic. There's no sewer that I'm aware of in Lilly. So in the county, and these were developed in the past, you'd be able to put a septic if you have water under that the zoning, they would allow you to have those smaller lot sizes as long as you have enough room for septic. But segueing on to sewer, we are bringing sewer to and through. Sewer department is required that we bring it through according to their policy. Happy to do that. So we're just bringing it along the south side, as sensitively as we can to disturb the minimal amount to get the sewer through. So we have a 20-foot easement that'll run down here and then up the side of the property, and we'll end up with the sewer manhole right there at the property line. It could be extended in the future. Not my call, but it's there. If it ever wanted to be extended, these properties, as you know, would have to be annexed. Unless the city has some arrangement to serve sewer outside of its city limits. These would have city addresses. I mean, they would be addressed in the city because it's a city street. I mean, technically, these houses are addressed in the city right now because if you send mail to them, it's going to Coeur d'Alene. Then, yeah, I see a few smiles. We all know that drill. Up in Hayden, they're addressed to Coeur d'Alene, and it has to do with the zip, but that's it. So this is basic plat we're proposing. This lot will remain a large one, and then we have the 4 down here. Access sewer would come, again, up to here. Laterals would be extended along this alignment to this house to be connected. This is the proposed PUD, and again, the PUD is required because this lot doesn't have street frontage at all. These 3 have less than what would be required in an R3 zone. It's 70 feet and they have less than that. So you've got a 24-foot common driveway to serve these 2 lots up to this point, and then it narrows down to simply 15 feet because the driveway past here would only serve that lot. Fire's weighed in on this. It'll meet the fire requirements as far as grade and width and all that to get to this house. Sewer easement along the bottom. So with the PUD, this open space tract meets the requirements, the 10%, and it has a flag that comes down to this common space. So this open space would be accessible by all 4 lots. This lot can get to it in the common tract for the common driveway and then come up here.
Gordon, can you repeat that again? The open space has the flag. I missed.
What's that?
I wasn't following you when you said the open space.
So this open space, it's a little bit hard to see, but the tract actually extends. It's 10 feet that comes down here.
Okay.
And I'll show you there's our open space plan. That shows
great.
a little bit clearer.
Thank you.
So we have the open space tract. We'll have a gravel path that goes up that 10-foot, and that's where the sewer easement's going to be, but it'll be an open space tract. And then come over here, we have a little resting station with a bench, passive use, maintain the trees, keep it all in its natural condition. So that's what we're looking at for the open space. This I wanted to show real quick. Staff mentioned it's got a hillside overlay to it. Well, we go through the exercise to make sure we're not creating lots that create a space that you would end up with a house so small in order to meet the preservation requirements. So because of the slope and the equations in the Hillside Ordinance, about 50% of the lot has to be preserved and natural as it's developed. So these are just conceptual building and grading envelopes that would include driveways and everything. And we went through the exercise with staff to say, yes, this can be done, even including on a few of the lots, the utility easements for, in this case, sewer would come up, this one also. So even including the grading necessary to get the improvements in, we still have more than enough area to put lots in and get the grading and stay under the hillside requirement for hillside preservation. So this layout is sensitive to that and complies with the Hillside Ordinance. Views and vistas, because of the layout with no through street, common driveway, Hillside Ordinance, this layout is minimal land disturbance needed to construct it, and even the homes. Hillside and urban forest preservation, the Hillside Ordinance alone, like I said, requires 50% of lots to be left in undisturbed. In addition, we've got 10%, which is in open space tract, which is about 1/3 of an acre. So there's a significant amount of this development that is preserving the hillside. It's got efficient use of the existing infrastructure because we're just extending water we're extending sewer, water, we would just have services off of both sides. Density is, like I said, less than the surrounding subdivisions. Public facilities are adequate. We have staffs testify that water and sewer are adequate. Fire access would be, as we said earlier, from both sides of Lily. Physical characteristics. So, there's some question, or at least a question of, gee, is it compatible? Well, you can see from the topo, and if you don't read topo, the closer they are together, the steeper they are, that these lines are real similar to the surrounding neighborhoods. In fact, it's a little steeper over here. So my point is you have developed neighborhoods on the same slope as we have. And so it's not new. We would most likely end up with daylight basements on the downhill and probably first level entry garages on the uphill, and most likely be 2 stories. Maybe not always, but most likely. The grades are not super steep. They're less than about 20%, more or less. And again, these houses are built on, the abutting houses are built on similar grades. So kind of the proof is in the pudding. We can develop on this. The physical characteristics are not a detriment, and it's not difficult to work with. I'm going to take here a minute to talk about the groundwater issue. So the quote spring is not a spring. It's basically you got a 4-inch PVC pipe that daylights out of the slope and drains part of the year. It goes about maybe 75 feet down the hill and disappears into the ground. It's just a wet spot. My point is that with Hillside Development, it's not unusual to run into groundwater. This can be accommodated with building permit with developing houses. You put in foundation drains, toes of slopes. If you have basement walls, a foundation drain will catch any groundwater that's there, and we typically would pipe it to either rock sumps or dry wells on the lot so that it sends it right back into the ground. It's not a detriment. We have standard techniques that we use to deal with this. It appears to be a foundation drain that's on the site right now that probably comes from the house above. That will be rerouted to a dry well that we'll need to put in for the common driveway during development. So we'll take care of that one, what we know of, right off. There is a geotechnical evaluation that needs to take place before we submit the improvement plans. That was one of the conditions from the Hillside, pretty much a standard condition. So that will do a more detailed evaluation and present recommendations for dealing with groundwater and foundations should it occur. Traffic, so you've got 3 homes that access Lily. Traffic is, I don't want to use the right term here, but 2 trips in the peak hour would be difficult to measure the difference. Seriously don't think that you would notice it. So increase in traffic, it's hard to say that it's an impact at all with these numbers. 3 homes, 2 trips in the peak hour. That's as busy as it gets. I guess that's it. There you go.
Council questions for Gordon Woody.
Gordon, can you go back to that where you're showing sewer and water access off the streets?
I can.
So how is you said the top house?
This house?
Yeah, it's getting sewer down that.
Yeah, I'll bring it up the hill.
Okay.
And their septic is out in this area, so they'll abandon the septic and then connect it right into that lateral.
How about water?
Water they're already being served.
By the city? Okay.
Correct.
And one other question, so that street that comes in there is not a cul-de-sac?
This? Stanley Hill?
On the other side?
This?
Yeah.
No, it's just a dead end.
Dead end, but.
I don't think I have there's a little picture of it.
But above that, the piece
This
up there
is
is
the
a
cul-de-sac,
cul-de-sac.
but that's not where we're accessing. Lily just dead ends into the property right here.
Gotcha. I could see some
That's what you're
pushback
seeing
from
right
that. Okay, thank you.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gordon, keeping it on that slide. So what those elevation lines, how far apart are they?
These are a foot, or,
Foot. Oh, nice.
no, these are 5 feet apart.
5 feet. It's
So
pretty
the
steep.
elevation, it's about 20 feet across each lot. So this point is about 20 feet higher than that point, and this point is about 20 feet lower than this point.
And so in the staff report, it said the fire department will not go up a grade steeper than 8%. And in your report, it says this is between 20 and 25%.
So the fire department won't they won't bring their trucks up anything, so they're not driving a truck over in here. So this common driveway, you can see, it's just a short distance, but it runs parallel to these contour lines, which means I probably don't have more than 5 feet of elevation gain in 100 or 120. So if the fire department wants to access this lot, they're driving on a 5% grade driveway to the house.
Okay. But the houses themselves are going to be situated, like you said, with the daylight bay. They're not going to be on stilts.
Oh, no.
They're going to be situated, so they're going to be multi-level, probably taking advantage of that slope. You also said, in the staff report, it says you did a preliminary geotech report.
Yes.
There needs to be a full geotech report. Isn't it kind of a gamble not to do a full report? I mean, what if you find out all this stuff is slippery underneath?
No, because 90% of it you're going to see at the surface. So the preliminary geotech is a visual without test pits. So you can see if there's evidence of, groundwater or seeps or landslides or rock outcroppings, anything that would, raise an eyebrow as to difficulty of development. All that would come at the surface. The full geotech is going to go out and do test pits to see, well, how far is it down to rock? Or if I dig down 8 feet, am I going to find groundwater? These are not going to be surprises because we've done a ton of development on hillsides. All they'll do is generate recommendations for the builders when they come in to say, hey, if you go down 5 feet, you want to put a basement and you're going to hit rock, this may not be a lot for a basement. But if you do, be aware that you're going to have to deal with that rock in an appropriate fashion for the neighborhood. If you find groundwater, then you send a recommendation that says, hey, if you're going to do a basement, you need to provide foundation drains and you need to bring them around the house and, put them into dry wells or sumps. Again, these are standard techniques that have been used for years on Hillside. There's no mystery. But
And
that's
it's not their intention to build the houses, they just want to subdivide.
Well, no, but what'll happen is because of the hillside, and rightfully so, the geotech, before they subdivide, makes sure that they're not going to have, the builders don't buy the lots and come in for a building permit and find out they're building on a landslide, and the city has to say, well, wait a minute, sorry. So they do it ahead of time. It's real similar to, on a larger scale, Armstrong Park. That one's a steep, you guys know. Geotech was done saying, hey, these are the conditions we expect you to see. Here's the recommendations. This is how you deal with it. So when they come in for building permits to the building department's got that geotech and says, hey, this is what your geotech says. This is what we're going to make you do. It's all mapped out up front.
So East Lily Drive, where we were talking about for the access to the 3 lots, there's, the fire department can make it through there.
Oh, yes.
That's still not a city street. We don't plow it. We don't fix the potholes.
Right.
So these people are at the mercy of whatever East Side Highway District to get their street plowed.
Well, I guess if you want to phrase it like that, but everybody else that lives on that street is too, and I'm pretty sure that.
I just want to make sure, because, you get annexed into a city, you're paying a lot of money for city services that you're not going to get.
Other questions for Gordon? Christie?
Oh, thank you. Gordon, let's talk about density again. I just want to make sure I understand. The original home is part of this 3.9 acres.
Correct.
So there'd be 5 homes on the 3.9?
Correct.
And talk about what's surrounding it. Is there any plot of that size with 5 homes on it?
In the I don't understand the question.
In the, like, for instance, you said the surrounding neighborhood
Yes.
was very similar.
Let's see. Yes. Well, okay, here, let's look at this one. All right. So when you take the gross area of this subdivision and divide it by the number of lots, that's how you get the density. That's how we calculate the density. Is that, am I warm?
Well, I think so. I just was curious if, right next to it, county, let's say the county parcel, is there a similar 3.9 acre with, divided into five residential homes?
No.
Okay.
All the subdivisions are larger. So this one right here, I can basically outline it from memory. It comes in this, I don't know what the original parcel size is. I mean, I could estimate it and say it might have been 8 acres, you know, with how many ever homes on it. But I did my research and pulled up these original plats, saw what the original acre was, divided it by the number of homes, and came up with the density. That's where those numbers came from. So these lots are actually bigger because the overall density includes right-of-way. So when you exclude the right-of-way, the lots get even smaller. So if I was to compare, you know, if we were comparing the same density on this lot with the same density here, the lots over here would be bigger because I'm not dedicating right-of-way like this plat did. And I know from inspection that these lots are in the 14,000 square foot. These are smaller. They're in the 10 to 12 at the most.
Okay, so let's go to the other side of it, to the city property.
Yes.
Can you say the same thing about the city?
Yes. These were, I can tell you that Stanley Hill Terrace is over here, and that density was 2.42, and we're coming in at 1.5. So these lot sizes, again, are smaller than what we're proposing. And obvious, there are lots that are bigger than lots we're proposing, yes. Yeah, sure. But you can, kind of by visual inspection, see that, yeah, and I've tried to make that point by telling you that the density is lower, so these lots will be larger, and they'll still be single-family. So, again, we feel that's compatible, certainly compatible with the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood, and what's happening on the hillside.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess if it's okay, add one comment, and that is, you know, sometimes you scratch your head and say, okay, they want to come into the city. Okay, why would we do that? I'll just be blunt. This can be developed in the county. And if it's developed in the county, I just say it outright, the county has nothing like a Hillside Ordinance. Nothing. They have no restrictions on how much you can remove. So if it developed in the county, then it would be, the development would look nothing like the city, if not, for no other reason than the Hillside Ordinance.
Well, don't you think if they wanted to develop in the county, they would have done it?
No. And the reason is city services. So it's just a matter of economics. If you develop in the county, you would have to have a shared well, and individual septics would be cheaper than bringing the sewer through. But by the time you get a shared well and all the administration, it's more economical to develop in the city. Good question.
Any other questions for Gordon? Kiki?
Just one, and I'm speculating here, but the R3 that is on this side, the Stanley Hill side, which is 2.42, I'm wondering if that was probably annexed prior to the Hillside overlay,
Yes.
and they got,
Oh, yeah.
so they didn't have the restrictions that will be put on this piece.
Most definitely.
Okay.
I can tell you from experience, it was annexed before the Hillside Ordinance.
Okay.
It's been in the city a long time.
So this is going to be subject to new conditions that
Yes.
protect the surrounding neighborhood even further. And you did say that there is city water in the, off of Lily Drive. That is city water on that side. I have a question I want to confirm about the water, that there was concerns on the property. And I understand that your geotechs will require that before a house is built, foundation drains, and they'll all be draining out. How do you assure that any water doesn't escape the property because of the slope and affect homes to the downside of it?
So basically, it's injected. It's injected back into the ground. And it depends on how much, but I deal with it all the time in the county. So you go anywhere from roof drains that are put into basically rock sumps, which are, a modified dry well to a full dry well. And then your roof drains go right into them. Foundation drains would go the same, goes right back into the ground. The fact that when this water flows, it disappears into the ground within probably 100 feet tells me that we've got some decent absorption factors. But the Geotech report, when I do that, will fine tune that. And
So that could require other recommendations to the development of the site to assure the water stays on the site?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where is, do you know this, the Ponderosa Terrace
Right
location?
here.
Do you know the names of these?
This is it right here.
So Ponderosa Terrace and Ponderosa Park are those
These two right in here.
And the one on the left of it?
Stanley Hill.
Okay.
Stanley Hill Terrace is right here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Gordon? All right, thank you. We'll open up the public testimony portion of this. I have 3 people that would wish to give public testimony. Start off with Dale Dennis is in opposition and he wishes to testify. Come on up. And Mr. Dennis, Sherry will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Hi, I'm Dale Dennis, P.O. Box 2323, Coeur d'Alene. I have the public hearing notice, so I do have property within the 300-foot radius. There was nothing in there to tell what was going to be put on the property to start with. They're proposing 4 single-family dwellings. Is there anything that you can require that wouldn't be in excess of that? Because actually, you use your ground to the highest and best use. The highest use is a condo of 8 units. It's not the best use because it's not the same type of buildings of the surrounding area. The proposal is for this to be basically on a dead-end street of East Lily. Fire trucks do not like dead-end streets. At least the county does not. I don't know about the city. I don't think they do either. Most of this property will be accessed from East Lily. They have to go up Hill Drive, right next to the 3-Par Golf Course. Very narrow, 2-lane road. It's walked by numerous people. They walk their dogs and bicycles, and it's used that way as much as it is by the vehicles, automobiles. You put that much added traffic on there. He said that it's 2 trips a day, but that's 2 trips times 2 cars, and so you're actually making 12 trips per day up Hill Street. You're not gonna, excuse me, you're not gonna access this through Stanley Hill. You have to go a long ways back to the east and then drop down and get to this place. It would be accessed through Hill Drive. Councilman Miller indicated that prior already today that you're trying to protect the neighborhood. This is not protecting the neighborhood here by putting 3 additional units going to access East Lily Drive, because actually you look at the street, well, it's not on there, but you look at the street just north of it's Gunnison. It's a cul-de-sac. Fire trucks can access
through cul-de-sacs. They don't like the dead-end streets. I guess if this is not approved and it goes to the county, the indication is that they could put a lot of units there. Well, they still have to have the septic approvals. This is 120 foot a drop in this property is a tremendous hillside. And the indication was that the groundwater was going to be taken care of through dry wells. That may take care of it, it may not. There's a spring on there that I didn't know about, but if you have a spring, you have to divert that groundwater as well as the groundwater from the surface of their asphalt and everything. So it is a property that is has some challenges, and I just basically wanted to say that if it's just 4 units, why don't you require the Lily Drive go through? If you accessed it through to Lily Drive, then it wouldn't take the traffic on Hill Street. Part of them would go out West Lily rather than everything on East Lily Drive. And I know that what you've seen on here is that the existing home on it takes up at least a third of the property, and these are taking up a smaller portion of it. I don't know if he could get 4 units on it in that, if you push Lily on through. Just basically, that's the thing, that it's not compatible with the neighborhood, with especially the dead-end street.
Mr. Dennis, to get back to your question that you had at the very beginning, you were wondering if, because they're saying that there could be 4 units placed, or there are 4 lots on there, and you're questioning if that was the maximum amount. I want to get an answer to your question. So the question is, the proposal is 4 additional lots, and you're wondering if they're bound by that. And so maybe if I could have Mike come up, and was that your question?
That was the question, okay. If they're bound by it, because once it goes into an R3, you've got 8 additional units that you could put there.
So maybe Mike can answer that question.
Yes. The applicant requested a PUD and a subdivision and went through Planning Commission, and that was approved, so it locks them in with that PUD and that density as those 4 lots, and that's all they can build if this is annexed in. They could try to go back and re-amend that. It's highly unlikely, but right now that is approved with this annexation. If this annexation is approved, they're locked in with 4 additional lots.
Okay. I want to make sure we answered that.
The condo unit he brought up, it's single-family dwelling. You cannot do condos in the R3.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Any
questions?
No. Good presentation.
Okay, thank you. Move on to the list. We have Lauren Hayden is in opposition and wishes to testify. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
Council.
Yeah.
Council.
And Sherry will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Please forgive my crackly voice. The smoke has taken its toll. My name is Lauren Hayden. I've lived in the Stanley Hill area for 17 years. I'm here tonight to reiterate my objection to this project. In 2005, a very similar application by this same applicant was rejected by your predecessor council. In your staff report, you will see that it was rejected on 3 different bases. Nothing has changed. The reasons for that denial then remains just as applicable tonight as it did then. The only thing that's different in this application than the prior application is that the private driveway is taking the place of the Lily Drive punch-through. So that has been withdrawn and replaced by the public drive, ergo the PUD. And then the 10% open space also that has to comport with the, pardon me, with the PUD requirements. For the three reasons that this application was rejected back in 2005, numbers 2 and 3 are particularly of interest to me. Number 2, that the physical characteristics of the site do not make it suitable for the request at the time because of the steep topography, stormwater drainage, and existing spring. That hasn't changed. Number 3, that the proposal would adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and existing land uses because the property, if developed to its full potential, R3 zoning would be detrimental to the neighborhood character. That hasn't changed. That's the very same. On a little bit different tact, if this annexation is granted, what's in it for the city? Not much. You have a slightly increased tax base, minimal, but the demand for services and resources does increase what is required of the city. Pros and cons, your job to figure that one out. But I am urging this council to once again deny this application, and this time deny it with prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more name that wishes to testify. We have Jody McNeil, who is in opposition, that wishes to testify. Welcome, Jody. And Cherry will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. I hope I'm not redundant in my comments. I'm having a horrible time hearing.
That's fine.
I've lived next door to the property for over 50 years. I was 2 at the time, of course. And so I know a lot about the hill area. And I know that there is a lot of water on this proposed property. I didn't hear anybody mention the cistern that would be right to the east of the common area below the Hague home. That cistern is constantly full. There are even cattails that grow around it. That means there is a lot of water. I'm concerned when they take a lot of the trees down, which they will have to do in order to build, what happens to that? What happens to that soil? Is it going to end up down on the 23rd? It could. And I don't know if anybody has explained exactly where Lily Drive is. Lily Drive is accessed from Hill Road. The normal route would be to go on Harrison to Hill and down Hill to cut off to Lily Drive. As far as I know, nobody that has lived on my street, Gunnison, I live right above Lily Drive, nobody knows about this. They didn't know about the planning and zoning meeting. They didn't know about the meeting tonight. I have a feeling if those people had been aware of the meeting, they would have come and discussed the amount of traffic they're going to have when they use the Lily Drive for the 3 homes. That is a concern that a lot of the homeowners in the Hill didn't know about it. We came in 2005 to the city council. I spoke and I said the same thing. I didn't think it was a wise move, and a lot of that is because of the water issue up there. As I said, I've lived in the area for 50 years. I have talked to neighbors that have had springs come up into their homes. In fact, the Mitchell home, which is now the Hague home, had one of those springs come up into their home underneath the furnace at one point. There's a lot of water on Stanley Hill, and certainly in that area. And if you take the trees down, what holds the dirt? That and the traffic. And I think if more people were here, you would hear more concerns about the people on Lily Drive now servicing 3 homes. That's probably at least six cars a day for a common driveway. There are common driveways on Stanley Hill Road, and I have to tell you, it's pretty inconvenient when the person wants to get out of there. I can't imagine 3 homes on one driveway. Anyway, I thank you for your consideration. Our comments, our neighborhood comments, 15 years ago are the same as they are now. Some things never change. It's not a wise move. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. So I don't have anyone else on this list wishing to testify. Anyone in the audience wish to add their name and testify? At this point, Gordon, if you'd like to come up and give a summation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, I guess I would start by saying this is a totally different proposal than was seen in '05, completely different. That one had a road going through it. The amount of grading required just for that road was significant. And I'm guessing that's what led to the incompatibility with the physical environment, because the grading alone to create a road that could access, that would meet city standards is significant. Secondly, the neighborhood was opposed to a through traffic vehemently, a through road. So to say that it's the same, I'm not seeing it at all. This is a new proposal. We have a PUD. We did not have a PUD before. We have open space. We did not have that before. I don't know one element of this plan that's even remotely similar to what was seen before. So, and I appreciate that. Groundwater, yes, you've heard that. The drain, the foundation drain is what drains the spring that came up underneath the house. Again, that'll be piped to a dry well. Should they encounter additional water, again, we can handle that. The cistern, I believe, was told by the owner, has been abandoned and filled in. It was used for irrigation in the past, for irrigating trees that they had. Cul-de-sac, yes, fire departments don't like dead ends. The street is there, we're not creating one. That's existing. They've been driving on it. There's 9 houses that access off of East Lily. To the east, they're being served by that existing street right now. I think that's it.
Kiki.
If you know this, was the Hillside Ordinance in place in 2005?
No, 07.
07. So the things that are restricting this property now didn't restrict it during the last presentation. And I think part of the Hillside Ordinance has that you can only remove a certain percentage of the trees entire. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, I did mean to touch on that. So the Hillside Ordinance is really pretty specific in that you identify the area that's to be disturbed, and it allows tree removals for things like houses and driveways, essentials. So you identify that. Anything outside of that, and that plan is looked at and approved by planning and engineering, anything outside of that has to be protected. In fact, it has to be fenced so that you don't accidentally, get outside of the area that you're disturbing and knock a tree over. So when we come through with our utilities, we will put up construction fencing, and that's actually called out in the Hillside Ordinance, along the edge of our easement, so that we won't have backhoes that are spoiling trench dirt outside of the easement area or any of that. And then when they come in to build the houses, they'll identify the disturbed area and the undisturbed area. And the trees have to be protected, yeah.
Okay. And so other restrictions in the Hillside Ordinance that would have caused, I guess I'm trying to just get my head around that there are some things that have changed based solely on the Hillside Ordinance that
I think it's important that we make a point here. So in the staff report, it does say at the Planning Commission hearing, it was stated that the Hillside Ordinance was adopted after the 2005 annexation request was denied. Staff looked into the matter after the hearing and discovered that the Hillside Overlay Ordinance was adopted in 2003. Yeah. So it says it applies to all land within the Hillside Overlay and to all lands annexed into the city limits after May 1 of 2005. Correct.
Okay, I saw that in two different places.
So 2003.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Gordon? All right. Thank you. And we will close the public testimony portion, and we will look for council action and discussion. Dan, you got to have something to say.
Yeah, I actually don't have an issue with the R3. I am concerned about the houses being on such a steep slope. It seems like Gordon has that under control. But I just can't annex in property that doesn't going to have a city street in front of it. So I would be opposed to this.
Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, my thoughts are, I would have to agree with Lauren Hayden. I don't really know what's in it for the city. And I've asked for these annexations that come forward that we get an impact also from the police department, and that's not attached. You have reached out to fire, which I appreciate. But I just don't, the additional services that will be required, I just don't see what is good for the city in this. Now, maybe after this geotechnical analysis, and maybe if, down the road, if they do build within the county under the county rules, we might be interested. But right now, I'm not, because it's just too many unpredictables. We don't really know about the groundwater. I would be okay with tabling this or just denying it.
Other council comments?
Procedural question. So, Hillary or Mike, can you please explain the difference between denying with prejudice and denying without prejudice? And I know this is only probably the 20th time I've asked this.
If you deny it with prejudice, the applicant has to wait a whole year before they come back. If you deny it with prejudice, it's 1 year. Without, they can come back next month and re-amend their application and try to come back.
Thank you.
Other council thoughts, Dan?
Well, just, kind of wrestling with this back and forth like we do, and, can picture the area, grew up there, used to take our BB guns up there on Stanley Hill and things, and there's, it's some steep terrain, although a lot of houses have been built over time and with very similar terrain. I certainly can appreciate that if you live next door to it and there was this, large wooded area, that you'd rather have it stay that way, but that's not the way that things work over time. At a point, I think, they have, things are probably going to change. Now, as far as the annexation or not, I guess I'm not completely sure of how to weigh the scales on that either. I don't know that if we're going to annex something into the city, that there has to be a real-life identifiable trade-off, or how you quantify that. One of the things over time that seems very, significant to me is that any chance that we get a chance to convert some places that are on septic or some new development that otherwise would be on septic onto a sewer, that's a significant trade-off. So I guess I'm just wrestling with this, and whichever way come down, I can appreciate both sides, but I don't think this is an unreasonable request. It certainly seems to me, and I wasn't here back when they decided on, at the last time, but I mean, have to weigh each application and the circumstances that are coming to us today. And so that's what I'm looking at.
Other council members, what do
Following this, since the past, the things that were restricting or made it so it didn't pass the last time are pretty much addressed through all this. The roadway is gone, the water's being worked on, the Lily Drive dead end thing, it's a dead end now, it's going to be a dead end even when there's homes there. It's just a driveway that they can access to it. They're doing the 10% open space. They didn't have that before. So it seems like for what got turned down in '03 or '05 or whenever it was, has been addressed. And that's where the Hillside Ordinance came in. And that was the whole idea of the Hillside Ordinance that I remember. It was pretty extreme at its time, and it was to protect the hillsides. I mean, that's the bottom line. And if you look at the subdivisions that are already there, that were there long before the Hillside Ordinance came, those folks are happy, they're content, they got theirs, and I get it, and I get this, the last wooded area, the last forest sitting on the hill that doesn't have homes in it. But realistically, it seems that they've addressed all the things that weren't addressed in 2003 or 5 when it was last turned down. So I would like to support this because I think it may, well, again, back to sewer and water. The water's already up there. I think the sewer is always an added asset from the city. I mean, that's what we have that the county doesn't have. We have sewer, and they have the city water out there. So eventually, theoretically, if their septic started failing, and we're right there, come on over. Help share in these things that we take care of you anyway. Police, we have that fire, the mutual aid. If there's a fire up there, guess what? It's our guys. We're going to get there before the county. So we're all in this together up on that hillside. So I have a hard time saying no because of the same reasons in '03 or '05.
Amy?
And I would agree with what Woody said and add just that I'm comfortable with the density being compatible with the surrounding areas. So Christy, I appreciate you confirming that with Gordon, and everything else has been said here, so.
Right. So you're looking for council action if anyone chooses to jump out there?
I'm working my way, hang on.
Yep.
So I would like to move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 211016 once by title only.
Yeah, we're over here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're on
I'm
the
the
motion
wrong
to
place.
approve or deny the
Oh.
annexation, depending on how that goes.
Okay, got it,
'Cause
sorry.
I'm assuming
It's a page off.
that's
used to do
denied.
that in the
If that's
opposite,
denied,
but
we
now
don't
we're
go
back to
on
doing it the other
any
way.
further. Okay, so that's where we're at there. What?
Okay, got it. Sorry about that. Motion to approve Resolution 21045, annexation agreement with.
Okay, one more up.
One more back?
One more up.
Dang.
One more spot up.
This used to be easier. What happened? Oh, I got older.
But we're doing it in a different order at one point.
Okay, sorry about that. Motion to approve A2-21-A, proposed 3.194 acre annexation from County Ag Suburban to City R3 located at 2248 East Stanley Hill Road. Applicant Eugene and Nancy Haig, Living Trust, to direct staff to negotiate an annexation agreement and to develop the necessary findings and order.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Anyone want to discuss that anymore? All right. Roll call, please, Sherry.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
No.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
No.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
No.
And I'm a no. So that is denied.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that council deny A 221, which is the proposed annexation from County Ag Suburban to City R3. I believe we have to officially deny it. Is that correct?
I thought you just voted against it.
So we're good? We don't have to move to deny?
No, I don't think so.
I guess the only question, Mike, would be is if you deny it, is it with or without prejudice? So maybe we do need to have that motion to deny with or without.
Well, that's a good point. Council's wishes on that, whether it's with prejudice or without.
So if you made that
I
motion.
just be deny without, because I mean, if they want to bring it back, I'm okay with that.
So your motion is to deny without
Without prejudice.
prejudice. And do we have a second on that?
Second.
And a second. Further discussion on that?
So what does that accomplish? It was here 10, 15 years ago, it didn't make it. It's now under the new Hillside Ordinance, and it didn't make it. So by giving him a chance to bring it back, what
Well,
do you
it's either-
expect to
If I
see?
do it without prejudice, it just gives them a year. So I mean, to me, it's like splitting hairs. If they're going to bring it back, they're going to bring it back sooner or later, so.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So any further discussion on Dan's motion, which is to deny without prejudice? Is that correct, Dan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Motion by Dan Gookin, second by Kiki.
Correct.
Okay. And any discussion? Roll call, please.
McEvers,
No.
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
No.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
No.
And I'm a
Miller?
I'm a yes. Oops, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of me.
Miller,
Go ahead.
I'm a,
Get it right.
I'm a yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
and then I'm a yes. Okay, so that motion is carried. All right, so we then move to the recess portion of that.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we recess to July 29th, 2021 at noon here in the Library Community Room located at 702 East Front Avenue for a workshop regarding fiscal year 21-22 budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. We are in recess.